GT3s lost only 4.6% during last year. So are we looking at a market bottom and should you buy one right now? Or should you wait to see if prices will continue to drop? Now, before we can understand the GT3 market, we need to understand the car market and its history. So here's a quick summary. The 2020 pandemic triggered a series of events that caused almost all cars to increase in value. Demand soared and supply plummeted. The pandemic also caused a shift in the car auction landscape. In-person auctions were no longer possible, resulting in a boom in online auctions. Perhaps you even considered yourself to buy or sell a car via an online auction, but decided not to. Maybe you were worried about the details of the car not being right or the hassles that are attached to buying or selling online. All of these worries can now be taken away by buying or selling your car through Sotheby's Motorsport. They are a new online auction platform that combines the best aspects of in-person and online auctions. Third-party inspections on listed cars are the rule, not the exception, and they can assist you with transportation, financing, and even help you in case of remedies. In their current selection you'll find a McLaren P1, M3 GT, and Alpina Roadster V8. Fancy any of these cars? Register as a bidder at sothebysmotorsport.com and start bidding. Now, the pandemic price surge had to end, right? Everything that goes up has to come down, at least a little bit. That's then also what happened. The tide shifted and the rules of the market changed. The market topped and the era of guaranteed profits came to an abrupt halt. But that's not all of it. It got worse. Partially fueled by increasing interest rates, cars started to depreciate at above normal rates after the 2022 market top. Price trends for sports and supercars are of course correlated to the general car market, but the height of the correlation depends a lot on the segment you're looking at. Looking at the history of GT3 prices, we saw that prices for the older generations, like the 996 and 997, soared, along with the increase in the general market. But prices didn't bust, they stayed high. 991s also increased, but topped at the same time the market topped. Yet, the decrease that followed was much smaller than the drop in the general car market. 992s are of course the newest and were therefore susceptible to all problems on the supply side. Naturally, prices demanded a premium during the pandemic. However, when the market topped, 992s depreciated quicker than the 991s. Fast forwarding to today, we can see that all prices flatlined. Over here we have the price trend in the US market for the 996 GT3s. I'm aiming to include the German market in the next GT3 market update, so stay tuned for that. Now, looking at the trend, we can see that prices increased by 3.5% or $5,000 during last year, but that they are down by 4.6%. However, the price uncertainty in this market is large, so we need to dig a little bit deeper to figure out what exactly happened. You see, the market stabilized already in May of last year. Cars started to sell slower and slower, and this resulted in the end of the upward trend. But there is a fundamental difference between low and high mileage cars. If we split the price trend between the low and high mileage cars, we can see that the cars with less than 23,000 miles increased more than the high mileage cars in 2021, but also decreased again in 2022 and 2023, whereas the cars with more than 23,000 miles were stable. Clearly the premium for these low mileage cars were too high. It are then also the low mileage cars that pushed prices down in the last 6 months. Moving on to the 997, we can see that prices soared during the pandemic price surge and have been stable ever since. Compared to last year, prices are up by 3.1% or $5,100. During the last 6 months this was 0.5% if we correct for changes in the market composition. And that also brings us to the difficulty of the 997 market. 997 GT3s are incredibly rare, which means that the price uncertainty in this market is large. Yet, the cars are still selling relatively quickly and the discount rates are only small in case that they don't sell within 3 months. I can even split this trend by the 997.1s and .2s, and based on this, one could conclude that 997.2s increased more than 997.1s, but I'm not comfortable to draw this conclusion. By splitting an already small market into even smaller subsegments, we lose even more price reliability. In October and July only one 997.2 was listed for sale, and that's simply too little to yield reliable conclusions. But all of this doesn't apply to the 991 market. Supply is decreasing over there, but there are still more than enough cars for sale to get a reliable price trend. Over here we have the trends for the .1 and .2s. The touring models are excluded. We can see that prices didn't change during last year. .1s are up by 1% and .2s didn't change at all. But this doesn't mean that nothing happened in this market. Prices dropped in 2022, but less than the market average. Moreover, the price drop during the summer was only short-lived. Prices stabilized during the winter of 2023 and are now at approximately the same level. Compared to 6 months ago, .2s are up by 1.8% and .1s are down by 0.5%. Very small changes. There's by the way no difference between the manual and automatic .2s. The manuals are just a little bit more expensive, but the price trend is the same. And with that we arrive at the 992 generation. This generation experienced the largest losses, but also stabilized the most recent months. Prices dropped by 14.5% during 2023, but decreased at a slower rate ever since. Compared to last year, prices are down by 3.9%, and compared to 6 months ago, prices didn't change. The trend's direction clearly changed during last year. If I also add the tourings to the graph, we can see that the trend is similar. A sharp decline followed by a flattening. And this further validates that we're looking at a real trend change. Unsurprisingly, the trend change is visible in all market segments. If we break the price trend down by the mileage categories, we can see that prices flatlined for almost brand new cars, but also for relatively high mileage cars. Those are the ones that have a mileage between roughly 2.7 and 12,000 miles. Alright, we discussed now all generations and that means that we talked about a lot of numbers. So I think it's time that we start to pull everything together. Over here you can see the price changes during the last 12 and 6 months per generation. And this allows us to draw a few conclusions. First, we can see now that prices increased by an average of 0.2% during last year. But also that there are big differences between the generations. The newer the car, the lower the price increase. Second, we can see that prices decreased by 0.5% during the last 6 months. But we need to interpret this number with care. It's heavily influenced by the minus 4.6% in the 996 market. But remember that this is driven by the low mileage cars. Mid to high mileage cars were flat. Taking all of this into consideration, these numbers show us that prices flatlined across the market, whereas they were clearly trending up or down before. It also reveals that the GT3 market is doing relatively well compared to other cars. Let me show you. Over here we have the US year-over-year price changes for almost all cars that feature on my channel. On the horizontal axis we have the price change compared to last year in percentages. And on the vertical axis we have the number of cars to which this change applies. You probably recognize this graph from my previous video. The market declined by 9.8% during last year. So if I plot the yearly change for the GT3s in this graph, it's evident that they performed exceptionally well. The price drop for the latest generation is even less than 50% of the average market drop, while new cars normally fall on the left hand side of the average. Unsurprisingly, we can see that GT3s tend to sell relatively quickly and that discount rates on these cars are basically non-existing. Over here we have the development in the unsold inventory and the price development of that unsold inventory. The graph on the left shows the percentage of cars at any given date that was also for sale 3 months ago. And looking at this, we can see that the percentages have been decreasing during the most recent period. Only 25% of the 992s and 991s were for sale for longer than 3 months in October. And this is a low number compared to other cars. We can also see a drop compared to January 2023. And this means that cars have been selling quicker and quicker. Something that matches with the flattening of the price trends. Note by the way that the 997 and 996 trends are fairly unreliable due to the small market size. Also the developments in the other graph support the flattening of the price trends. This graph shows the discounts that are applied to the unsold cars, and we can see that this was only 1 or 2% in October. It is, however, the trend that is the most interesting here. Price changes on unsold inventory were the largest when prices were dropping in the second half of 2022. But since the winter of 2023, discount rates have been less negative. Even with winter approaching, they're almost non-existing. And it will be interesting to see how this will develop in the upcoming months. And this brings us to the next big topic. Should you buy a GT3 right now or should you wait? Looking at the 996 and 997 generations, we saw that prices increased in line with the market, but didn't decline when the market tanked. In other words, the cars were relatively immune to the market correction, and this means that right now is as good or bad of a time as ever to buy a 996 or 997 GT3. When it comes to 991s and 992s, we saw that prices topped mid-2022, and in my opinion, that wasn't a smart moment to buy. I even made a video in January 2022 with the title "The worst moment to buy a 911 GT3. Now, however, there's nothing visible in the price trend that would warrant a similar conclusion. Prices already corrected and showed resilience. The correction was much smaller than in the rest of the market. More recently, prices even flatlined, something that is not visible in all markets. Therefore, I think it's fair to conclude that it is at least not a bad moment to buy a 991 or 992 GT3. So does this mean that this is the absolute bottom of 991 and 992 prices? No, of course not. But if you're buying right now, you're at least not buying into a declining trend. Now, I don't have a model that can accurately predict GT3 prices, so all of these statements are of course based on past price developments and therefore pure speculations. Nobody can predict the future with 100% certainty, and there are plenty of doom and gloom articles out there that predict the next economic collapse, something that will definitely influence GT3 values if they were to materialize. But if you use these low probability extreme events as your guidance to buy a GT3, you will most likely never own one. Of course, that's just my opinion. And with that, we arrived at the end of this video. Now, if you enjoyed this data-driven way of analyzing car markets, but would like to see the analysis for a different car, head over to my channel. Over there you'll find market analysis for a large variety of cars. Can't find the car you're looking for? Let me know the name of the car by commenting it down below in the comment section. Once there are enough requests for a certain car, I'll make a video about it. As always, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you next week for a new video.